Unprecedented drought in Somalia with massive die-offs of livestock, and experts say famine is possible if the rainy season fails again.
Hope and reconstruction take root in Nigeria's northeast as humanitarian agencies fix the damage caused by years of the Boko Haram insurgency.
And an inventive craftsman in Cairo breathing new life into discarded items and turning them into furniture for homes. Africa 54 starts right now.
Hello, I'm Chamberlain Osoa, Channels Television here in Lagos. Welcome to our show. We'll take you around the continent for a variety of stories from across Africa. And I'm joined by my colleague Vincent Makori from Voice of America.
Well, thanks a lot, Chamberlain. I'm at Studio 51 at our VOA Global Headquarters in Washington. Now, lots of important stories again this week, and we begin with a look at how Nigeria's military is helping people rebuild after years of conflict.
Well, yes, the narrative in the Northeast is changing from the conflict and mayhem to hope and reconstruction. Numerous humanitarian agencies have taken to fixing the damage caused by Boko Haram. And now the military is helping out too. Channels Television's correspondent Blessing Tuno compiled this report.
Nigeria's military capabilities on the battlefield undoubtedly contributed to the turning point in the counterinsurgency war against Boko Haram. But their abilities transcend combat. They also know to drop their weapons and reach out to those in need outside the battlefield. Here in Gwoza local government area of Borno State, some of them come bearing aid materials for displaced people who, having returned to their communities, are in need of humanitarian aid, including shelter, food, water and medical attention.
We came with quite a number of doctors, nurses, other hospital workers who can identify whatever areas. The main thing is that the things we can treat here, we treat. The things we cannot treat here, we note them and then decide where else we shall treat them. The idea is that what we can treat here, we take to the next level of medical care at no cost to the individual. The Air Force has borne it.
Over 50,000 IDPs live in this community alone, most of them orphaned children and the elderly. The officers of the Air Force attend to eye-related problems, deworming of the children, carry out general checkup for nursing and pregnant mothers, as well as distribute free mosquito nets.
They have given us mosquito nets, which will protect us from mosquito bites and from falling sick.
The medical wing of the Air Force is currently running a full hospital in similar camps in Dalori and Bama in the state. While in Maiduguri, the state capital, the 7th Division of the Nigerian Army chose to make an impact on education by donating books and other educational kits to children at the Bakassi IDP camp. The Army's primary aim is to fulfill its promise to see to proper education of displaced children to guard against future indoctrination.
The projects that I and officers and soldiers of 7th Division will be commissioned is in furtherance of the commitment and desire of our able Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General T.Y. Buratai counter-terrorism strategy, which is aimed at applying the stick to whip Boko Haram while using the carrot to ensure a bright future for children who are innocent victims of terrorism.
Parts of the donations to the Bakassi Camp School include thatched classrooms, furniture, instructional materials for teachers and books for the students.
I wish to appreciate to soldiers and teachers who have always tried to teach and put us through. Thank you all.
This humanitarian approach by both arms of the Nigerian military is part of war strategies aimed at winning the hearts of the people, particularly children, who could become potential targets of violent extremism if not properly enlightened.
Tens of thousands of South Sudanese have died since a bloody civil war broke out in December 2013 between forces loyal to President Salva Kiir and his former deputy Riek Machar. The conflict's human toll only gets worse as about half the country is is also now facing severe food insecurity. Well, joining us now to talk about the need for peace in South Sudan is Casey Copeland, Senior Analyst at the International Crisis Group. She joins us via Skype from Juba, the capital of South Sudan. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
A lot of worrying news coming out of South Sudan. Could you give us a clear idea of the situation on ground?
Well, since about July of last year, the capital in Juba has been secure, but conflict carries on in multiple other locations around the country. Over half the population is displaced, and this week the government and United Nations declared a famine in two of the most war-affected counties in the country.
Well, despite several peace agreements and negotiations by regional and international bodies, the conflict has not abated. Why do you think this is the case?
There was a 2-year-long peace process between the government and the largest rebel faction, which was led by Dr. Riek Machar. This achieved a peace agreement in 2015. Subsequent to that, the two factions fought again in the capital Juba, and the opposition split. Some of its members are in the government now, others have returned to the bush to fight. In the meantime, we've also seen several new rebel groupings emerge. So what was once a conflict between two parties is now a conflict between many different actors, which makes mediation and conflict resolution very, very difficult.
Now, with Riek Machar's dismissal as vice president and his subsequent exile, has this in any way reduced the civil war?
So one of the things that happened when Dr. Machar was sent into exile was that the regional grouping called IGAD, which is the Horn of Africa's version of ECOWAS, they agreed together that it was best for Machar to be in exile. And they also agreed that they would support the transitional government, whose first vice president is Machar's former deputy. So they decided that Machar's exile would rather promote stability in South Sudan and in Juba. So one of the things that this exile did was it actually secured a regional agreement on the way forward, which is really quite important.
Well, lots of people are looking for peace there, but do you think that there's anything African countries can do to bring about peace in South Sudan?
Absolutely. Both IGAD and the African Union are guarantors to this peace agreement and have a long history of supporting South Sudan. The African Union has what's called the AU5, which is a country from each of the 5 regions of Africa. And of course, Nigeria is the member of the AU5 from West Africa. Likewise, General Obasanjo has been intimately involved doing human rights research in an African Union Commission of Inquiry that highlighted the terrible toll the war has taken on civilians. So we see quite a lot of role from neighboring African countries. Some of the successes we've had in what aspects of peace there are because of these efforts, and certainly there's an urgent need for more.
Casey Copeland with the International Crisis Group, thank you for talking to us today on Africa 54.
Thank you.
Well, still in East Africa, Somalia faces an unprecedented drought, which experts say could lead to famine if the rainy season fails again. Now, millions are at risk amid massive die-offs of livestock. Jason Patton Kim reports on that story now from the northern Somaliland region.
The UN says more than 6 million people need food aid already in all of Somalia. After a year of drought, even the hyenas won't eat the carcasses of Mohammed Adengulad's livestock. There is too little meat on them.
I had 550 head, now only 50 remain. My family is made up of 10 members, and I must provide for them.
Herds are dying as there is little water or food in Somalia following 2 failed rainy seasons. Here in Somaliland in the northwest, at least 40% of goats and sheep have perished, amounting to more than 10 million animals. If April's rains fail again, people may be next. To stop the slide to famine, aid agencies and the government send water trucks to village wells, but their reach is limited. Mahmoud Ibrahim Yassin says only a few dozen of his animals were strong enough to reach this well, filled by aid group Save the Children. He said more than 100 of his animals were too weak to walk, but are too skinny to sell.
If we get rains, they will survive. But if there is no rain, I don't think they will survive.
For Gilo Ismail Mohammed's family, the rains will be too late. Over the past 7 months, they lost all 100 of their camels, whose milk they sold in markets. Now they are destitute, depending on handouts to survive.
That life will not come back. Now we have this life, and this is what Allah has for us. I did not ever see a drought like this. This is widespread. This is everywhere.
The UN has appealed for over $800 million to relieve famine across Somalia. Somaliland's National Drought Committee has raised under $7 million so far.
What's coming from the international community, from the donors, and even the local fundraising and the way people are supporting, you find that it's just a drop in the ocean. It's not contributing much. People are getting weaker and weaker day after day. The animals are dying day after day. So they will reach a stage where everything stops and then people start dying.
For millions in Somalia, surviving the droughts is a race against time. Jason Patinkin for VOA News in Burao, Somaliland.
Well, we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. And check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Coming up, for food and drugs in the developing world, contamination can be a deadly problem. Now, a group of researchers has come up with an inexpensive test that could save lives. That story after the break.
I am Sheikh Sali, host and senior editor of VOA's international calling talk show, Straight Talk Africa.
Today we'll examine the tobacco industry.
We pretty much touch on anything that you can think of. Politics, health issues, human rights issues, you name it, we talk about it. The issues that we discuss are pertinent to most people on the African continent. A very, very rare and unique opportunity to interact with their leaders.
Now, whether it's brake fluid in teething syrup, melamine in baby formula, or talcum powder in antibiotics, contaminated food and medicine is a deadly problem. Now, a group of scientists has developed an inexpensive test kit. Erica Celeste has that story from Indiana.
There are many ways for drugs to be corrupted, from manufacturer error to improper storage to fraudulent substitution. Notre Dame University chemistry professor Maria Lieberman hopes to give pharmacists in developing nations an easy way to detect contamination.
The pad is a lab on paper.
The PAD, or Paper Analytical Device, project began 6 years ago as a collaboration between Notre Dame and St. Mary's College. The simple invention replaces expensive machinery that might not be available in developing countries. The paper card allows testing of drugs at any stage of the distribution process. Each of the card's 12 lines is laced with a different chemical. When medicine is smeared across the lines and the card is soaked in water, a color change indicates whether the drug is safe. In addition to testing pharmaceuticals, Lieberman's team is developing cards that test lead, iodine, and even urine. Notre Dame graduate student Jamie Luther is working on a card to identify contaminants in milk.
There's tests that are published for, people at home to mix chemicals to test their own milk. And I thought to myself, that's so cumbersome. People shouldn't be handling acids in their home and some of these dangerous chemicals with their hands.
In order to discover the most common contaminants, Lieberman's team works with 18 universities throughout the U.S. They use special machines to analyze the drugs collected from pharmacies throughout the developing world. Notre Dame graduate student Nicholas Myers says he never considered what a big problem altered pharmaceuticals were before he started working on the project.
I just took it for granted that chemical analysis could happen anywhere. I guess I didn't know the extent to which low and middle income countries did not have the capacity to do chemical testing.
A New York company is developing a complimentary smartphone app to help read and evaluate the cards. Testers can take a photo with their phones and match it with the app database for almost instantaneous results.
If we can't increase the capacity of analytical labs in the developing world, maybe we can come up with a way to bring that technology in a portable form that will be usable in the field.
The World Health Organization says a functioning healthcare system should have 343 pharmaceuticals on hand. So far, Lieberman's team has developed pads to identify 60 different drugs and eventually hopes to have tests for them all. For VOA News, I'm Erica Celeste in Notre Dame, Indiana.
The tense relationship between crop and animal farmers in northern Nigeria is affecting the nation's agricultural sector. But now, a peace-building process in Benue, the food basket, is bringing together Fulani herdsmen and tea farmers in Mon, a community in Kwande local council area. Channels Television's Pius Angbo compiled this report.
Singing and dancing, indigents of Mon community in Benue State welcome the state governor who is here to resettle internally displaced persons who fled their homes in 2013 due to herdsmen attacks. They bear placards with different inscriptions, seeking solutions to several other needs to assist them settle into their ancestral homes. While the leadership of the displaced persons wants adequate troop deployment for security, the herdsmen commit to peaceful coexistence with their host communities.
We wish to request His Excellency to make adequate security arrangements that would ensure safe return of people to their ancestral home. Given the nature of our land, which is small, it would be difficult to live with Fulani herders. We support the executive deed on creation of ranches and solicit for its speedy passage.
We need to tell our people that they should abide by the citizen, they should give peace to reign in this place so that the other people or community of Benue State to come back to their various places. Hence, we have resolved the problem between the Taraba and Benue. The part of where it's causing problem have been moved down to Kashimbila, while this place has been agreed to maintain by the community hosts.
As agreed by the two parties, the more people.
The governor seals the peace deal with a charge to the leadership of both parties to embrace peace in order to pave the way for development.
I want to assure more people that I'm not going to establish IDP camp. You are going to go back to your ancestral home as from today. And there is not going to be any crisis again. Nobody is going to attack anyone. The Fulani people are not going to attack more people again. And more people are not going to attack Fulani again. So that all of us will live in peace. So that you can allow me stay in Makudi and look for money and construct roads and electricity and bring water and bring schools and bring all those things that you elected me to do.
As the Benue State government begins the reintegration program, which includes a budget of 21 million naira for the reconstruction of destroyed communities in Mon district, hope now returns to the once deserted town. The expectation is that similar peace efforts will be replicated in other affected parts of the country.
Well, you're watching Africa 54. I'm Vincent McCory in Washington. New research shows 3 African countries hard hit by the HIV and AIDS epidemic, Zimbabwe, Malawi, and Zambia, have made extraordinary progress in confronting the disease. Investments by the U.S. and other donors appear to be paying off. Over 75,000 adults and children took part in a survey by providing blood samples. The investigators say that their findings indicate that the HIV-infected people in the study are showing very little virus in their blood, evidence that antiretroviral drugs are working against the epidemic. The researchers credit PEPFAR, the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, for the continued improved outlook.
It's time now for a short break, but before we go, a reminder to visit our website, channelstv.com, for all the latest information around the clock. You can also find us on youtube.com/channelsweb. Still to come, it was more than 150 years ago that one man started an armed revolt that may lead ultimately to the defeat of slavery in the United States. We'll have more of his story after the break. Just stay with us.